I really do believe that one day this will be the watch that Rolex enthusiasts look back at and wonder, why didn't we buy this sooner? The hallmarks of a special Rolex, they were right there the whole time. What's up, YouTube? I'm Christophernegroni, and today I'm showing you a new watch. Well, it's a new watch to me, but actually it's kind of a new watch. I guess you'll get it when you see it. But this isn't just any new watch alert, because this may genuinely be the greatest Rolex ever made. And yes, you heard that right. It's another Rolex. For all you haters out there asking for less Rolex content. You wanted less Rolex? Well, you got more Rolex. More Rolex. Give me all the Rolex! So yeah, I bought another Rolex. I couldn't resist this one. You know, it just happened. I didn't see it coming, but you know, once I was sure in my head that I wanted this watch, it was game over. Once that infection set in, once the obsession filled my veins, that money, it was as good as gone. Poof. But let me tell you something. It felt right. Like coming home for the holidays. This watch is my home. I'm home, baby. So this watch, many years ago, I owned this watch. You know, I bought this watch for much less than I did today, but I loved this watch when I first saw it, and I loved it when I bought it back then. And for some reason, for many dumb reasons, you know, I let it slip through my fingers. And it's always been the watch that's haunted me the most. You know, it's been the one through the years that's eluded me. And finally, recently, you know, I had the opportunity to right my wrong. I had to do it. When the opportunity arose, you know, the condition of the watch, you know, just think about it. Would I rather be haunted by a watch for the rest of my life? Or would I rather, you know, if given the opportunity to right a wrong, why wouldn't you? You know? What would you do? As watch enthusiasts, collectors, and even some of you investors out there can attest to, there are watches that define your watch journey. There's that first watch you remember seeing in a boutique window. There's that watch you remember lusting over for years. There's that watch you didn't buy and always regretted. From your first watch to your latest, watches will always tell the time. But for many of us who delve deeper into the abyss, watches also draw time. They will draw a timeline of our journey through this hobby. They remind us of some of our struggles and triumphs. A watch can be a symbol of motivation, a token we look to in order to keep us moving forward. We all remember those watches that made us feel something. The Rolex Submariner 116610 LV, the pinnacle of luxury, precision, and timelessness. But this time, celebrated in a dazzling green, it becomes a defiant, a masculine, and brash take on an iconic watch. This blend of a classic design done in such a bold and vibrant color successfully epitomizes the popularity of Rolex in one watch. This watch is not for the faint of heart. It makes no qualms about what it is. Most will simply label it hype. But for those who understand the recipe we have here, it is a steel Submariner in a matching green dial and green bezel, In my mind, it has to be in contention with one of the greatest Rolexes ever made. Yet it is still one of the most sophisticated and well-rounded wristwatches, perfect for the boardroom to the beach. Just like every Submariner, it's still the perfect watch to accompany you through life. But in this one-of-a-kind version, it will always do so while not taking itself too seriously. If what you're looking for is the most traditional, most under-the-radar Submariner, then this is not that. No, the Hulk is special, and it has its ways of reminding you every time you wear it. It's dynamic in different lights, transitioning from a dark, mysterious green river in a dimly lit room to a shimmering green shore in the light. The touches of white gold in the markers do their part to throw specks of light all around the dial as you move it around. It's truly a dial to behold. For a green lover like myself, it just never gets old. The combination of a sunburst green gold dial and a matching Cerachrome bezel adds so much character and complexity to the traditional design of the Submariner. Through their wizardly Swiss magic, Rolex uses gold dust in this green dial paint. And how this brilliant dial still matches its beautiful Cerachrome bezel will remain a mystery. There's no other Submariner or Rolex like it. It's not the original green sub, but it was and still remains the most controversial green sub. This departure from Rolex's usual conservative history is what divided so many lovers of the brand, while invigorating and propelling the already popular brand to a new generation of watch collectors. The Submariner is a watch for everyone, but this particular one is definitely not for everyone. It stands out of the crowd of your typical black dial sports Rolex watch, demands its space, and inspires love, hate, and even envy wherever it goes. And I wouldn't have it any other way. So we got a Hulk, guys. We got a Hulk. But why now? Why am I going back to a 40mm sub, albeit in the Hulk, when many of you probably have seen some of my ramblings before where I've now flip-flopped back and forth on the 40 to the 41 and back to the 40, you know? So why now? Why did I go back to the 40mm sub? Now, first of all, you shouldn't be taking advice from me, okay? Especially on something so expensive as a Rolex, you know? Don't take YouTubers' advice on which one to buy, because I mean, clearly, if you can't tell, I'm a madman. I'm not naive to this fact. I know that I'm crazy. I know I've got some problems to work out. Okay, I'm working on it. But also, this is my watch journey. You know, working through what I like in certain watches, and you may feel differently. That's fine. Now, as I've said before, you know, I'll admit that the 40mm sub, the lugs are, you know, they're a bit wide. They're a bit oversized, and they always have been from its original conception. And they sort of fixed that in the 41mm. I will admit that the 41mm, perhaps they photograph better. But in this green, you know, dressed in this green, you know, it kind of works as camouflage. You know, I really don't see it anymore. I don't care anymore. I don't care. It's so beautiful. And while the 41mm might photograph better, it does feel bigger. You know, now having this 40mm back, it just, I don't know, it feels better. It has a better wrist feel. It doesn't quite photograph as nice, but it just feels better. And I mean, for many people, that might be what matters. Like if you're the type of guy to wear a watch all day, but you're predominantly, you know, you're indoors, you know, your wrist really doesn't swell up much. It kind of stays at its smallest most of the day. Then the 41mm sub is really a watch that starts to weigh on you. You know, it's that type of watch that when you get home, you take it off, you get that little bit of relief from. And it's not something that I noticed with the 40mm sub as much. You know, it could be me justifying it, but I definitely noticed that with the 41. You know, it wasn't the same when you're out in the sun and, you know, your wrist really swells and it kind of holds that weight a little better, but it's just something I noticed with the 41mm subs. It could be due to the bracelet, I suppose. You You know, the 41 millimeter Submariners, they have the wider bracelet, the wider clasp, and I think that just, you know, wears on your wrist a lot bigger. It just kind of feels like a cuff. And I really do like the older 20 millimeter bracelets. I think 20 millimeters is more traditional to Rolex, and it just feels like a smaller watch. Now, this move to add the Hulk back into my collection, it actually plays into my overall plan for my collection. It fits into my new collection theory. Now, in my last video, I spoke a little bit about watches that fall into a tier of greatness, if you will. So this watch is a part of my plan to ensure that no matter the occasion, no matter which watch that I reach for, I'll always have, you know, a minimum level of awesomeness on my wrist. Of course, it's subjective, but before this, I did begin to reach for watches like my Panda Daytona much more than any other watch in my collection. And now with the addition of the Hulk, I feel like this is just as great of a watch, you know, if not better than the Panda Daytona. That's what I want. You know, I never want to be in the situation where I'm wearing one watch and thinking, oh, I could have been wearing my Daytona, or, you know, vice versa. You know, I always want a certain level of awesomeness, you know. I get FOMO very easily. So that brings me to the question that you're all wondering about my 41 millimeter Submariner. Now that I have this 40 millimeter Submariner, am I going to sell it? I mean, I really shouldn't sell it, you know? I really shouldn't sell it because it kind of did me a solid there with that watch. But, you know, it kind of defeats the purpose of my grand plan here if I keep the watch, you know? Kind of goes against my collection theory here. My 41 millimeter 126610 LV gave me some very, very valuable data. Data that ultimately brought me back to the Hulk. I've said this in the past, but wearing a Submariner, in particular a steel Submariner in my favorite color green, creates the environment for a wearing experience that simply cannot be beat. More expensive, harder to get, anything more becomes a game of diminishing returns. You know, for me, I get the most enjoyment out of wearing a luxury watch in relax mode, you know, sipping on something nice, sitting in the water. So this combination of a green steel Submariner, the most green steel Submariner, just, you know, it's the peak for me. This is it for me. I mean, I guess you could say a gold Submariner may elevate it, but I don't know. I firmly believe that a Submariner, it should be in steel. Submariner is meant to be in steel. It's the best in steel. It's best for every occasion. It's the most durable in steel. It'll last the longest in steel. Submariner is a steel watch. So in order to take that formula that I know I love in watches, you know, steel, green, Submariner, in order to take that formula to the very peak, you know, I knew I had to get, you know, this gorgeous Hulk. It had to be the Hulk. That conclusion became clearer and clearer as I thought about my collection and downsizing it, really fine-tuning what I want. It just became so clear as day. You know, the clouds parted. Whoa, had to be the Hulk. My only slight hesitation that I had, something I struggled with, was the sentimental factor that I had in buying my 41 millimeter sub. You know, the journey in buying that Rolex, it was a sentimental one, you know, very, very close to my heart. If you saw that video about a year ago when I first bought that watch, was it a year ago? Yeah, damn, it's been a year already. About a year ago when I first bought that watch, you know, I talked about my journey in buying that watch and how a lot of my visits were done just me and my daughter, my youngest daughter, and how we kind of made it a game, you know, we made it a challenge to get this watch, and we were determined to get this watch. So we did the AD visits together, you know, the schmoozing that you have to do to get, you know, a really special watch like a green Submariner. And, you know, when we got that call, it kind of felt like, you know, we both got the call, you know, so it's hard to get rid of that watch. You know, how do I sell that watch? And really, I wasn't allowed to sell this watch. According to my youngest, I wasn't allowed to sell this watch. You know, but after a little convincing, you know, just the same schmoozing that we did at the AD, I did with her, and she agreed. As long as I replaced this Submariner with the greener Submariner, with a more green Submariner in the Hulk, then she would allow it. She would allow it. Because green is actually her favorite color as well, so we kind of share that together. And really that sentimental factor will now live on with this watch, because although this isn't my original Hulk, the Hulk in general has always been sentimental to me. You know, I spoke about how the Hulk was the watch that got away. It's always been the watch that got away. And it's not just because, you know, I bought a watch that I really liked and I sold it and I regretted selling it. Back in 2018, when I bought my first Hulk, that was shortly after my daughter was born. So that was my original Hulk. And, you know, the timing of that Hulk, you know, the happiness I remember having with it and, you know, putting it on her wrist is, I don't know, I remember that. And that went along with the regret. And it killed me every time I saw this watch. And so in realizing that if I righted that wrong, if I ever had the opportunity to get it back in my possession, I would do it, you know? And realizing that this is a full circle moment for me. In realizing that, you know, that was my green light. Pun intended. That was my green light to go ahead and restore good in the world, and all is well now. All is well. The Hulk is back on wrist. Whew. I swear, if you guys are even a little bit sentimental and you're in this hobby, be careful what you buy when you buy it. It makes it really difficult when you start to get attached to these things and you attach memories. And I mean, I think that's what a lot of us love about this hobby, is that, you know, these earthly possessions will kind of carry a memory of their own. They'll kind of place you in a timeline somewhere in your life. And they bring you back to that. It's kind of like smells, you know. You have certain smells and it brings you back to a time, you know, memory. And that's kind of what watches do. So just be careful out there. It makes it very difficult to sell sell watches. But that first watch, man, that thing haunted me. I remember that was going to be my only watch. That was going to be my one and done. I was going to one and done the Hulk back then. And yeah, man. So this just feels like sweet redemption. Now, buying a Hulk in 2024, it isn't the easiest thing to do. Obviously, it's not a model I can ask my Rolex retailer for. So, a discontinued, colorful, steel sports Rolex. Even with the watch prices coming down a bit, Hulk prices are still very high. The demand is still there, and I think that won't really change. And give it enough time, it will only appreciate. But finding one that met my criteria was even more difficult. I can tend to be very particular about my watches and sort of finicky. I really don't want a watch that's been banged around by someone else or polished to hell, because while most people won't be able to tell, I 100% will be able to tell, and it'll bother me, and slowly but surely, it will ruin a watch for me. Now, I'm an advocate of, you know, wearing your watch. Scratching, denting, that's all fine with me, but I need to be the one doing the scratching and denting. It's just how I am. So if I was going to pursue the Hulk, my criteria was not only unpolished but unworn, because you can have a watch that's unpolished but, you know, completely beat to hell. It could be worn 6, 7, 8, up to 10 years. You know, this watch has been, you know, it was in production for 10 years. So you could have a pretty old watch, worn but unpolished. For me, it had to be unworn. It didn't need to be factory stickered, although you can see this example came with a few stickers still on the crown guards, the safety clasps, and inside the clasp, so that didn't hurt. Unworn or nothing, and frankly, that doesn't come cheap. I won't reveal exactly how much I paid, but I was able to talk the seller down a smidge, which is another thing. I found many examples that did meet my criteria, many examples that were much cheaper than what I paid for my Hulk. But from experience, I know that the fakes they're just too good nowadays. And the Hulk is definitely not immune to this problem. You know, even if you get an example with box, papers, you know, card, original receipt, all that can be faked. The only way you can really mitigate that risk and know that you're getting a genuine Rolex product is to follow that old adage and buy the seller. It's so important that when you're shelling out thousands of dollars for something like a wristwatch that you really don't try and skimp and save a couple bucks here and there and you skimp on the seller. You really want to do your research and make sure you're buying from a seller that has tons of reviews, someone that is well versed in these watches, someone that, you know, only buys the best examples, and there's plenty of examples out there. This watch was proudly purchased from Win Vintage, And if you're even a little bit familiar with Rolex, you know Eric Wynn's knowledge and reputation precedes himself. It was a huge positive for me knowing that Eric had vetted the origin of this watch, had personally verified its authenticity, and ensured me the watch had met my unworn criteria. So I received this watch in unworn condition with a few factory stickers left, box, papers, hang tags, and even the original coffin Rolex will typically ship these watches to the boutique in. All of that included is just that little bit extra that makes this purchase that much better. The buying process was smooth as butter, and I would highly recommend working with Eric if you are as particular as I am with your watches. So shout out to Eric Wynn. It's pretty cool to be able to buy a watch from him. You know, I've honestly probably seen countless videos of him on YouTube detailing Rolex and vintage Rolex. You know, very knowledgeable guy. So there she is, guys. The Rolex Hulk is back in my collection, and per my wife's words,
fucking sell it.
I mean, I don't know why I would ever sell this watch again. You know, beyond some catastrophic life event and changing my finances. It's gonna be a forever watch. The Hulk is a forever watch. I really do believe that one day this will be the watch that Rolex enthusiasts look back at and wonder, why didn't we buy this sooner? The hallmarks of a special Rolex, they were right there the whole time. A Submariner in steel, already one of the most iconic wristwatches ever made, but done so in Rolex green. It was so obvious the whole time, even with all the hype, with the spike in price, all the love, the admiration, the hate. It still slipped through most collectors' fingers, including myself. But not anymore. Thank you all for watching. I'll be sure to bring you more content on the Hulk in the future. I want to do a more in-depth video. I want to do videos of the wearing experience. I want to do a video that's a little bit more cinematic, you know, something on the water, something, you know, in the sun. That's really where this watch comes to life, you know. So I really want to bring you those videos and show you what it's like on wrist, out in that natural environment. So if that's something you want to see, make sure you're subscribed. Stay tuned for the next video. Throw a like, and I'll see you next time. Negroni out.